Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dean of Faculty of Economics, Universitas Indonesia. Please welcome Professor J. Rosengard from Harvard Kennedy School. Mr. Saleh Hussein, Chairman of Board of Trustee. And all VIP guests, please be seated. Penari siap ya. Penari siap ya.
Nanti ditaruh, nanti podium.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Please welcome Ngelancong Dance, a modified traditional dance from Jakarta.
Tapi jangan sambil mangan. Cong-cong ayo ngejong jangan lupa bawa pancong. Yap boleh layak tapi jangan sambil mangan. Cong-cong ayo ngejong jangan lupa bawa pancong. Yap boleh layak tapi jangan sambil mangan. Cong-cong ayo ngejong jangan lupa bawa pancong. Tapi jangan sambil mangan.
the honorable guests, Board of Trustees, Professors and Academic Senate Council of Universitas Indonesia, Vice Rector for Finance and General Administration Affairs, Deans and Vice Deans from all faculties in Universitas Indonesia. Good morning and welcome to celebrations of the 96th anniversary of Faculty of Economics Universitas Indonesia. My name is Desti Fitriani, Executive Secretary of Faculty of Economics Universitas Indonesia that will host our program today. To start our program today, let us together sing the national anthem Indonesia Raya. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand up. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now listen to the recitations of prayers will be led by Bapak Abdul Subur. Bapak Abdul Subur, please welcome.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bapak Ibu sekalian, mari sama-sama kita tunjukkan wajah dan hati kita di hadapan Allah Subhanahu wa taala. Mudah-mudahan pertemuan ini menjadi sebuah pertemuan yang penuh keberkahan Allah Subhanahu wa taala. Astaghfirullahalazim, astaghfirullahalazim. Ya Allah, ya Ma'bud, Allahumma salli ala sunnah habibina wa syafi'ina wa maulana Muhammadin wa barik wa sallim wa radallan kulli sadatan ashabi rasulillahi ajma'in. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Hamdan syakirin, hamdan naimin, hamdan wa binakabi majidah. Ya Rabbana lakal hamdu wa lakal syukru wa lakamul kama yanbaghi li jalali wajhika karim azim sultanik. Allah, ya Rahman, ya Rahim, di siang yang mulia ini kami bernaung dalam karunia rahmat-Mu, berlindung dalam kebesaran asma-Mu, patuh taat dalam ketentuan kudrat dan iradah-Mu, bersimpuh dan berharap ampunan dalam kasih sayang-Mu. Engkaulah pemilik alam semesta ini, jadikanlah kami sebagai hamba-hamba-Mu yang pandai bersyukur. Maka dengan kemurahan rahmat-Mu yang maha luas, dengan kemuliaan-Mu yang agung, dengan cahaya kesempurnaan dalam sudut-sudut arasy-Mu, berilah kami ilmu yang bermanfaat, kemampuan dalam bekerja dan berkarya untuk kemajuan bangsa dan negara. Allah ya Rahman ya Rahim, jadikan pertemuan ini adalah pertemuan yang penuh rahmat. Jadikanlah Natalis Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas Indonesia ini sebagai wasilah untuk mengingat kebesaran-Mu. Berikan pada kami semua petunjuk dan kekuatan dalam menjalankan amanah-Mu. Karuniakan kepada kami sivitas akademik Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas Indonesia kemampuan untuk berkarya demi kemajuan bangsa dan negara. Allah ya Rabb, kemarin tanggal 25 September 2019 adalah hari yang bersejarah bagi UI dan Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas Indonesia, di mana putra terbaik Fakultas Ekonomi Bisnis Universitas Indonesia, Profesor Ari Kuncoro PhD, Engkau berikan amanah dan tanggung jawab ke depan untuk memimpin Universitas Indonesia. Maka bimbinglah dia dalam rahmat dan cinta-Mu, bimbinglah dalam belayan maaf dan sifat rahman rahim-Mu, sehingga dapat bekerja dan mengabdi dalam rantai mahabbah dan cinta-Mu. Jadikan kami orang yang patuh dalam tarbiyah-Mu. Jadikanlah kami sebagai hamba-hamba yang tetap istiqomah dalam tarbiyah-Mu. Berikanlah kepada generasi Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas Indonesia ini adalah generasi terbaik, menjunjung tinggi nilai-nilai keimanan, nilai-nilai kebenaran dan martabat yang luhur. Jadikanlah generasi ini adalah generasi yang handal, mempunyai kedalaman spiritual, kedalaman intelektual, dan moralitas akhlak yang luhur dan terukur. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adzabannar. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Salamun alal mursalin. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we will now hear an opening remark from Dean of Faculty of Economics, Universitas Indonesia, Professor Ari Kuncoro. But beforehand, we would also like to announce you that yesterday, Professor Ari Kuncoro has just elected as a new rector of Universitas Indonesia 2019-2014. Please give us a round of applause. Hopefully this will bring a very significant change for the Universitas Indonesia toward a world-class university. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Ari Kuncoro.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, may peace with all of us. The honorable guest, the Chairman Board of Trustees, University of Indonesia, Bapak Saleh Husin, the Chairman of the Academic Senate Council, Professor Nahrawi, Rector, who is represented by Vice Rector for Finance and Administrative University Indonesia, Dean and Vice Dean of all faculty in Universitas Indonesia. Here we have Pak Adrianus Boboruntu, the Dean of Faculty of Humanity. And Professor J. Rosengard. Actually, the opening remark in English is not necessary because Professor Rosengard is very fluent in bahasa. But anyway, I will proceed with what has been prepared here. Yeah. This is the standard operation procedure. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, let us first of all express our gratitude to the Almighty God who has allowed us all to gather together on this happy day to celebrate the 69th anniversary of Faculty of Economic Business, University of Indonesia. 69 years ago, the first business and economic school in Indonesia has been established. This school has taken a very significant role in developing Indonesian economy through providing superior human resources, leading economic think tanks, and contributing in various economic sectors, including in government and private institutions. This has become a legacy that must continue to be preserved from generation to generation, that FEB-UI must be able to create the best attainment and to positively contributing for the country. Ladies and gentlemen, today we celebrate the 69th birthday of FEB-UI with the theme Achieving the Next Level of Excellence. The world of higher education faces very hard challenges to be able to compete at the global level. University in Indonesia must be able to demonstrate their quality at international level by achieving a good ranking. For this reason, various efforts have been made to align our position at the international level through the participation at various international accreditation and the involvement of FEB-UI in the network of the best business school in the world, such as dennen, Global Network for Advanced Management, AMBA, EFMD, and AACSB. In order to improve the quality of education at FEB-UI, we present lecturers who have the best competence in their field to share knowledge with students. One way is to invite guest lecturer to share their knowledge with the FEB-UI member. For this reason, today we present Professor J. Rosengard from Harvard Kennedy School of Government, who will share his knowledge in the financial technology and the transformation in the financial services on today's lecture. Last but not least, we would like to thank to Mr. Monica Romelina Sijabat as alumni and lecturer from the accounting department, FEB-UI, for facilitating the event. Hopefully this will be provide an enormous benefit for FEB-UI in increasing its international network exposure as well as increasing knowledge for our students. Thank you all for coming here today. I wish you enjoy today's event. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Professor Ari Kunchoro. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like now to invite Professor Siddhartha Utama, Vice Rector for Finance and General Administration Affairs, who represent Rector of Universitas Indonesia, to give an opening speech. Professor Siddhartha, the floor is yours.
Honorable the Chair of Board of Trustees, University of Indonesia, also the Chair of the Academic Senate of University of Indonesia, the Dean, Vice Deans of Faculty of Economics and Business, UI, and also Pak Adrian, the Dean from Fakultas Ilmu Budaya, and all the professors, lecturers, and especially all the students of Faculty of Economics, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and of course, last but not least, to our distinguished Professor J. Rosengard from Harvard Kennedy School. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Good morning all. When I was informed about that I had to represent the rector yesterday and making a speech, and I was told that the speech would be provided by the chair of the public relations at UI. And last night she sent the email to me, and it's in Bahasa. Okay. So this morning I was told by Bu Desti that it's better to make the speech in English. So I was a bit panicked. What should I do? But of course we have, IT, Google Translate. So I just put all this speech in Bahasa to Google Translate, and of course I had to edit the speech. So given that I have spent some efforts, to make the translation, then I have to make the speech in English. Well, I'm very happy here. I'm glad to be here because I'm from Faculty of Economics and Business. I have spent in the last 1.5 years every day coming to the Central Administration Unit, and not many times, to these faculties that I really love. So I'm really happy to be here and representing the rector, and who unfortunately cannot attend these celebrations at the Faculty of Economics because at the same time he has 4 invitations. So of course he has to pick one of them, and the other occasions he appoint all the vice rectors to represent him. And first of all, let us thank God, Allah the Mighty, who has gathered us in this place in commemoration of the 69th anniversary of the Faculty of Economics and Business. On behalf of the University of Indonesia, I would like to congratulate the Dean and Vice Deans, the Board of Professors of the faculties, the Senate Academic of the faculties, students, staff of Faculty of Economics on the 69th anniversary of the Faculty of Economics. Hopefully, FEB-UI continues to progress and develop. Its graduates continues to play key roles in enhancing the welfare of people in Indonesia. On this occasion, on behalf of UI, I would also like to congratulate Professor Ari Kuncoro, who was elected as the Chancellor or Rector of UI for the next period. This certainly it will be marked in the history of UI because Professor Ari will be the first faculties or professor from Faculty of Economics becoming Rector of UI. And of course, I'm sure all of us are very proud of it. And we wish Professor Ari all the best in your new role as Director of UI, to achieve the UI visions. From the perspective of UI, Faculty of Economics and Business play a very important role in achieving UI's visions. Why is that so? Well, first of all, Faculty of Economics and Business is one of the largest faculties in UI, in terms of number of bodies, and more importantly, in terms of the revenues. And of course, as the Central Administration Unit, we need Faculty of Economics, to provide contributions, for central administration. But I think it's not only that. Also the main contribution is the performance of the Faculty of Economics, especially in the international standing. The international class of Faculty of Economics and Business at UI, I think one of the largest, or maybe the largest at UI, and we have a lot of partners, universities from all over the world. This indicates that, universities all over the world recognize, the reputation of the Faculty of Economics. And of course, we hope that this can be continued in the futures. The other outstanding performance of the Faculty of Economics and Business is in the ability to have international collaborations, research collaborations, including like the event like this, inviting Professor J. Rosengard from Harvard to provide lecture to the students, and I think this is very important from the UI perspective because we know that UI wants to be recognized as a reputable universities not only in Indonesia but also global. And to be recognized as a reputable universities globally, your research outcomes must be very outstanding. Research. The key point is research. Currently, UI is in the top 300 of universities worldwide rank according to QS. But the government of Indonesia wants UI to be in the top 100. Okay, so a jump of 200 from 300 to 100. Of course, this will be very challenging, And to do that, the only thing that UI has to do is to improve significantly the outcome of the research. Yesterday, during the debate, Prof. Ari mentioned about the importance of international research collaborations. And I think that's the important thing. You need to have international research collaborations with reputable universities. Actually, the Ministry of Research of Higher Education has initiated a collaborations with MIT. MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology Research Alliance, and it will start today, this year, for the next 5 years. But, MIT is famous for its engineering, okay? So most of the benefits are going to ITB, not to UI. So hopefully, with Prof. Ari becoming the new rector of UI will have strategic collaborations with reputable universities overseas, hopefully, for example, like Harvard. And of course, this will increase the standing of UI internationally. With distinguished ladies and gentlemen, with regard to the topic of the two-day sessions, I think this is very important because financial technology is very important in providing access to those that have no access of funding in the past. Actually, about 2 days ago, I have a meeting with a FINTECH in Indonesia. This FINTECH company, they want to offer a student loan to students at the University of Indonesia. Until now, student loans are not common in Indonesia. Banks, they don't want to provide funding to students. Why? Because students don't have any credit standing. They're not working yet. It's a high risk, very high risk. The credit risk is very high. So we can see now, because of this FINTECH, those access to those individuals that don't have access funding because of their credit standing, now will be able to have access to this funding. And they approach us, UI, they want to have a collaboration with UI, providing student loans so that it enables students that have some difficulties with the paying the tuitions or providing their living allowance, that will enable these students. So I look forward to hearing the discussions about this FINTECH. And last but not least, I also want to quote the wise words of Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, he says that if you do something and it turns out pretty good, just pretty good, then you should go do something else wonderful. Okay? So let us always think creatively and create new innovations to answer various problems and challenges of the nations, not only the nations, but also the world. Finally, on this beautiful day, I would like to thank to the leadership of the faculties, lecturers, and also staff, of course, of the Faculty of Economics who have worked hard and worked hand in hand in providing the best service implementing the three dharma of higher education in these faculties. Again, congratulations, big congratulations, Faculty of Economics and Business. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Professor Siddhartha. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are now approaching the main agenda today. That is a lecture from Professor J.K. Rosengard from Harvard Kennedy School with the topic Financial Technology and Transformations of Financial Services. Moderator for today's lecture is Dr. Kiki Ferrico, a senior lecturer and researcher from Department of Economics, Faculty of Economics, Universitas Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor J. Rosengard and Dr. Kiki Ferrico.
Very good morning to all of us. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Distinguished guests, chairmen of universities, professors, faculties, college students, and all the participants. Welcome to the Faculty of Economics and Business, University of Indonesia. Today, 69th, DS Natalis of Faculty of Economics is so special, at least for two reasons. First, for the first time in the UE history, as Professor Tata mentioned, an elected rector coming from this faculty. And previously known a joke, let the medical school manage Universitas Indonesia and economics manage the country, Indonesia. But at the moment, and since now, it's become come true that we manage both University of Indonesia and also Indonesia at the same time. Okay, and secondly, it's a very privilege for us, Faculty of Economics and Business University of Indonesia, in our DS Natalis. This year, we have distinguished Professor J. Rosengard as our guest lecturer. We'll talk about FINTECH and transformation of the financial service, as you can see from the title of the presentation there. And Professor J. Rosengard, please allow me to read a little bit of his very long CV for 40 years experience. He published a book, Economics of the Public Sector, which is very familiar for us, the fourth editions, co-author with Joseph Stiglitz, economics Nobel laureates, in 2015. And this book is also used by our university. And followed by many journals, articles, conference paper, book chapters, and so on. And for the education background, Bachelor of Arts from Princeton University, and then Master in Public Administration at Harvard University, and PhD in Public Finance and Urban Economics, also from Harvard University. Professor J experience in 40 years of international designing, implementing, evaluating development policies, and also 40 years experience on Indonesia. That's why, in addition to his very excellent and fluent in French, he also speaks Bahasa and also some accent in Japanese. So be careful if we make a joke in Japanese, he can understand. He speaks Bahasa better than my English. Anyway, and with very various country experience, not only Indonesia actually, but also Jamaica, Chile, Haiti, Grenada, Tunisia, many other countries overseas from the United States. And we really appreciate Professor J because he told me he just came at 2 a.m. in the morning, flew directly from United States. So bear with him, yeah. Of course, very tiring journey, and then we have to on time for this session. So we need to finish at 10:30, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 1 hour. So maybe like 40 minutes of presentations, and then we can open question and answer session afterward. Okay, without further ado, Professor J. Rosengard, we give you floors. Yeah, thank you.
pagi. Bagus. Terima kasih banyak atas kehormatan yang diberikan pada kami. Seperti saya pulang kampung ya. Keluarga besar FEB-UI ya. Nah, walaupun bahasa Indonesia saya cukup lumayan, sebaiknya saya pakai bahasa Inggris. Sudah lama tidak tinggal di Indonesia, oleh karena itu bahasa Indonesia saya agak kaku. Tapi kalau masa tanya jawab, kalau mau pakai bahasa Inggris boleh, bahasa Indonesia boleh, bahasa Gado-Gado boleh, freestyle ya Pak. It's a great honor to be here, both to commemorate the 69th anniversary of. I'm used to FEB-UI. Also to congratulate Prof. Adi, now our new rector of UI. So it's a double celebration. Thank you very much. Also, I'd like to acknowledge the support of Ibu Monica, who is not only a graduate of UI, but also Harvard Kennedy School Executive Education. Thank you very much. So, some of the slides I'm going to skip, but later we'll post them. They'll be available to everybody to try to stick within our time limit. So the digital revolution is far more significant than the invention of writing or even printing. So I'm looking out and was walking in, and everybody or many of you have laptops going on. How many of you have a mobile phone? How many of you have more than one? Okay, so I don't have to explain to you how important the digital revolution is. And the presentation, I'll tell you a little bit about why any of this matters, some of the basic concept of financial inclusion, and then most of the rest of the talk will be on Indonesia, and we're going to look at some of the early successes in microfinance, highlighting Rakyat Indonesia, BRI. But then we're going to talk about things that aren't going so well in Indonesia. And we'll talk about some banking challenges. We'll talk about why it's puzzling the financial sector in Indonesia after Krismon. It's very well capitalized, too much capital, very liquid, very profitable, and small businesses can't get loans. So we'll look at why that's happened, and we'll talk about it from the demand side, supply side, regulatory environment, and then we'll talk about how FinTech might be able to facilitate access to credit for small and medium enterprises. So some good news, some bad news, and then a little bit of hope as FinTech could be a tool to help deal with challenges facing Indonesia to improve financial inclusion. So, what is financial inclusion? Very simply, in many low-income economies, most households and businesses don't have access to formal financial services. Most of the people, most of the businesses don't have access to formal financial services, and I call them the unbanked or underbanked majority. And when I talk about financial services, I'm talking about payment services, domestic payments, foreign remittances. We have a lot of overseas workers from Indonesia. How do they send money from their overseas jobs? Not to Indonesia, but to their home village. Yeah, it's different. Don't have access to banking services for savings, so that you can smooth your income that goes up and down by seasons or by luck or by the economy, and to help you accumulate some assets. We talk about access to loans so that you can produce additional income and make investments. And we also talk about financial management risk instruments. How do you manage risk? And we're talking about things like insurance, life insurance, health insurance, crop insurance. And what it does is it forces a lot of people to go to informal sources that tend to be much more expensive. So if we understand more or less what financial inclusion is, so what? Why do we care about it? I know you're all very good people, but there's a very practical reason if you're interested in sustainable, equitable economic development. And so what we're trying to do is to ensure equal opportunity so that you can participate in Indonesia's growth. So you see around the world and in Indonesia, the growth, if you look at aggregate, look at growth of GNP, GNP per capita, the numbers are quite good. At the same time, the gap between the rich and the poor is growing. And that's because a lot of people don't have access to the instruments that will allow them to participate in national economic development. And so what we're trying to do is to promote economic empowerment of the financially excluded through innovations in financial product design, delivery, regulation, and part of that would be the use of technology to try to provide access to the services. It's not, in Indonesia, like the United States, people aren't saying everybody should be equal in outcomes. People want to get rich. They want to prosper. In America, maybe they want to be, you mentioned Steve Jobs. But what they want is equality of opportunity, especially for their children, so that everybody has a chance to prosper. And so when I said most of the people, that is lower income households and family businesses, we're talking about something called the base of the pyramid. So you see a picture there, pyramid. And when we look at the base, the top is the richest part of the economy, the bottom is the poorest. And when you look at it, the very top is what we call the exchange market, and that's the group that the banks serve. Okay, so we're not going to talk about them. They take care of themselves. What we're going to talk about is what we call the base of the pyramid, all of the strata below the top. So if you see on the right, you can see where microfinance fits. And then right above that, you can see small business enterprises. And then you can see medium business enterprises. So that is what we call the submerged market. It's bankable, but they don't have access to financial services. The very, very bottom is the subsistence economy. And most of these people really are not bankable for loans. They need other types of assistance. In Indonesia, you have conditional grant transfers, for example, health, education, other types of assistance. But everybody above that really could take advantage of access to financial services. And you'll see at the very bottom, it might be hard to read, the base of the pyramid is roughly half the world's population. 3.2 billion out of 6.4 billion. The numbers are a little bit bigger than that, but it's a lot of people. And in the red on the right, it says the base of the pyramid market. So that's what we're talking about. And what does it mean in Asia? We're talking about 83% of the population, and we're talking about the market in terms of purchasing price parity of almost $4 trillion. It's a big market, a lot of opportunity if we can figure out how to serve them. And so then the question is, escape. Okay, sometimes computers are very stubborn. Maybe sedang mogok kerja, I don't know. Maybe there's some little labor dispute between computers. and the university, but we will teach behavior, right? Okay. So what's so special about these businesses? Why is it so hard for banks to service them? As I said, it's the foundation of most economies. They're important for increasing economic output, promoting exports. That's not them, that's probably me, okay? Source of job creation, technological innovation, and if you can help small and medium enterprises, so here we're talking about UMKM, okay? So sometimes you'll see MSME in English, micro, small, medium enterprises. Kalau tidak salah dalam bahasa Indonesia, UMKM, okay. If these businesses participate, then you improve distribution of income and wealth, and you have the basis of a strong market economy. So again, what's the problem for banks? Why do they have problems serving the market? Well, these businesses, and think about your own experience, think about businesses you know, you just can go up and down any street in any city in Jakarta, and most of the businesses will be like this. They're family owned and managed. They're the informal or semi-formal sector, which means that they often have seasonal or irregular cash flow. They have minimal formal financial records. Now, the owners, they know what's going on and they know if they're making money, but at most they might have a cash book. You ask, ya, rugi laba, neraca, apa itu? Tidak perlu. But a bank, they want to look at, audited financial statements, and then they want collateral, but they want collateral that we call is immovable, land and buildings. So many people have real estate, but they don't have the certificate, yeah? So they can't pledge it as collateral. Maybe you have buku C, everybody knows it's yours, you know it's yours, but you can't take it to the bank. They don't have formal credit histories. They've borrowed a lot. Friends, family, money lenders, supplier credits, but they don't have a formal credit history that banks can look at to see what the credit risk is. And they're in every sector, everywhere in the country. So, for big businesses, banks have specialists. I deal with industry, I deal with manufacturing, I deal with agribusiness. What about small businesses? They do everything, everywhere. So again, specialization is difficult. And banks see them as high risk, low return. And if you're a bank, you should not make loans you think are high risk and low return. So there are some technical reasons, regulatory reasons, but basically, banks do not know how to assess the risk, so they don't know how to make good loans to the sector. All of these are perceived risks. And so when banks try to do small business lending, Indonesia has a long experience. I don't know, it's probably before you were born. They used to have something called credit program. Disalurkan lewat BI. You can't do that now because of banking laws. So now you just have something called KUR, Kredit Usaha Rakyat. Maksudnya baik, walaupun demikian tidak begitu berhasil, because it just defies the basic functioning of markets and basic supply and demand. So banks in Indonesia that have tried this, they do this as a social mission. It's social outreach. And so I will give loans as long as I get good publicity, maybe part of public relations, maybe I'll get good government relations, and then it would cost too much, I stop the program. Borrowers are smart. They know if it's a government program, eventually you don't have to repay. And what you're looking for is developing a long-term relationship with your clients. The number one incentive for somebody to repay a loan anywhere in the world is having the option of future access to credit. Why do Americans pay their credit card bills? Because they don't want to be on a blacklist and not have access to credit. Same thing in Indonesia. If you think the bank will be there tomorrow, if you need it, you have a good incentive to repay today. If you think, ya bantuan pemerintah saja deh, ini hak saya, sebaiknya jangan dibayar kembali. It's a smart thing, it's a rational thing if you're looking at your long-term relationships. So then these banks underprice the product so they cannot cover their costs, and lending to micro and small businesses is very expensive. And it's not because the risk is high. The risk is actually lower if you can do it correctly, but the transaction costs, you're bringing money to the borrower, to the kecamatan or to the desa, it's expensive. And you're lending small amounts, so the cost per rupiah is higher. It's just basic business. So you're going to have to charge more to cover your costs. If you don't cover your costs, you go out of business, and that doesn't help anybody in the future. So they have the wrong lending methodology or organizational structure or product design or product delivery systems because they say, well, a micro loan or a small loan is just like a big loan. But it's not. You need different loan officers with different backgrounds, different career tracks. You need different products that match the cash flow of the businesses so they can repay. It's a different way of doing business. That's a little depressing. You're very quiet. So I'm going to give you a success story from Indonesia that understands how to do this as a business. One of our earlier speakers said, well, I believe it was Bapak Rector, he said, can we, I'll paraphrase, can we do well and also do good? Doing well means making money, being profitable. Doing good means having positive social impact. We call it the double bottom line, the first bottom line. You have to be profitable to be sustainable, but if you serve people who generally don't have the service, you're also having very positive social impact. So, the Ring of Fire, that's what outsiders call Indonesia because you have lots of volcanoes and they kind of get upset from time to time and they blow off a lot of steam. So, early success story. So, a lot of Indonesians are unaware of probably the largest sustainable microbanking model in the world. Right here, it's at BRI. As I said, it's the world's largest, most profitable, unsubsidized microbanking operation. And it was commercialized in the mid-1980s. Does anybody here remember BIMAS? Maybe you read it in the history books. Okay? Part of the Green Revolution, subsidized credit. And the idea was that there were new technologies developed, new rice technologies, where you had rice that was responsive to fertilizer, pesticides, and you needed to be able to finance the inputs. And so BRI for many years financed farmer credit to help adopt new technologies to improve rice production, the Green Revolution. So again, for you young folks, I was talking to some other dosen, and we're not getting any older, are we, right? But you guys, you look younger every day, yeah? But you are the future of Indonesia. So when we talk about the revolution, the microbanking revolution in Indonesia, in the end, BIMAS was successful. You didn't need it anymore. And the subsidies became very, very high for the Ministry of Finance. So the minister at the time said, BRI, you find a way to do profitable small banking, microbanking, or we're going to close down all of your units around the country. And for many Indonesians, this was the only formal banking services they had. So there's a complete revolution. They introduced something you might have heard called KUPEDES, Credit Umum Pedesaan, but it's also in Perkotaan, and then something called SIMPEDES, Simpanan Pedesaan. And that was really the revolution. I co-authored a book about it. If you're interested in the development of microbanking in Indonesia, I can refer you to the book. Some other banks in Indonesia, private banks, tried it. And some figures from a couple of years ago. In 2016, BRI was Indonesia's second largest bank in terms of assets, the largest in terms of its network, and microbanking was 1/3 of BRI's total loans outstanding in value, 1/3 of their total deposits, and now they have a network of almost 10,000 units. So BRI has kantor pusat, kantor wilayah, kantor cabang. So kantor cabang does retail banking, regular commercial banking. Below that, they have BRI unit. And then below that, they have Teras Mobil. They're using technology. In fact, BRI is the only bank, I believe, in the world that has its own satellite. So they're using technology in very creative ways. And some totals here. Those of you who have those wonderful phones, you might want to check out the calculator function, make a simple calculation with me. So outstanding microloans were almost 16 billion US dollars. Kalau dirupiahkan, yeah, it's a very, very big number, right? Lots of zeros. Almost 9 million borrowers, and non-performing loans were 1%. So they're making lots of small loans to lots of people with very low losses. So if you take 15.7 billion, you divide it by 8.9 million borrowers, the average loan is, anybody? Average loan size is? Doesn't, tidak boleh. That's okay, she's a longtime friend, so she takes this well. Yes, she tidak perlu teknologi itu, pakai otaknya, yeah? So you're talking about around $1,600, $1,700. These are small loans, averaging 1 to 2 years in monthly installments. But on the savings side, they have even more savings, 16 billion, more than the credit, 40 million savings account. Anybody, not including Prof Meling, anybody want to give me the average savings account size? Average savings account size. Anybody? Okay, so we're talking about $300-400, hundreds of dollars, not even thousands of dollars. So that means they're getting very low in the economic pyramid, very close to the base of the pyramid. And BRI has changed over the last 30-35 years of technological innovation. They started. Again, I'm going to test your history. Did you ever hear of the system called Buku Besar? General ledger system, and then you have the sub-ledgers, old Dutch accounting system. So BRI started with a manual accounting system. They later computerized it, went to online double entry accounting. They now have a lot of e-channels, ATMs, and all sorts of other types of vehicles to try to reach their customers. In addition to the roughly 10,000 physical outlets they have, including boats that go from island to island in outer Indonesia, and BRI link agents. So some of their best borrowers now become agents for smaller borrowers, around 85,000. So it's just an example that Indonesia, with proper regulation, management, incentives, really knows how to do commercially sustainable microbanking. And I'm not getting paid by BRI. They don't know I'm talking about them. But it's one of Indonesia's best kept secrets. But now, also one more thing about BRI, I should say. They've gone beyond microfinance. And this brings us a little bit to the FinTech we'll talk about a little bit later in transport, travel, e-commerce. This is beyond BRI and beyond conventional microbanking. So you have digital wallets to facilitate payments, for example, on transport platforms, Gojek, GoPay, Grab, GrabPay, some competition. Both Gojek and Grab were established by Harvard Business School graduates in the same class. Yeah, and now they're competing with each other. Sometimes fintechs are partnering with banks, for example, Mandiri, or electronic payment providers like Doku. You have all sorts of ways of paying for food, concerts, cinema. You have Post Indonesia partnering with Kinerja Pay. You actually have Indonesia's first entirely digital bank, BTPN, partnering with Genius. You have Bank Mandiri, venture capital investment in peer-to-peer lending through Amarta. And you have even banks like BNN and BRI having hackathons to try to acquire tech talent. So a lot of good things happen in Indonesia, and in fact, the fintech market is very vibrant, very, very exciting. And I'm going to close in 10 or 15 minutes talking about a very exciting fintech in Indonesia to help with SME lending, especially small business lending. But before that, got some problems in Indonesia. So this the case I'm going to give you now, I wrote with an Indonesian colleague who's now the rector of Atmajaya University, Prof. Pras. Yeah, giving him credit. This was before he became rector. Okay. And what we saw in Indonesia is that traditionally over the last several decades, Indonesia was a global leader in microfinance. But if you look at the current figures about financial inclusion in Indonesia, most people look at something called World Bank Global Findex. Google it. You can access all the data for free. You can do it by country. You can do it by region. You can do it by country income level. And even though the numbers are getting better, they're much worse than countries that are similar to Indonesia, either by location or by income level. And the only reason they're getting better is what they're doing is counting mobile accounts on your phone, not access to the full portfolio of financial services like savings, credit, and insurance. At the same time, as I mentioned, Indonesia banks are liquid, they're solvent, they're profitable, and even though the Indonesian economy every year for a long time is growing at a real rate of about 5% a year, that's pretty remarkable, small businesses complain they still can't get access to formal credit. So, in thinking about methodology, when you're looking at financial services, I would always look at three sides: the demand for the services, the supply of the services, and the regulatory environment for the services. So, very briefly, if we look at the demand, this is looking at the size of Indonesia's financial sector, not using the World Bank Findex, financial inclusion indicators, but looking at something called the financial services data set. So around the world, how do you look at how big your financial sector is? So you'll see the four basic indicators of size. And when I originally did this, the data stopped at 2009. And I've updated it to 2016, and you don't see much change. Relative to comparator countries, Indonesia's financial sector is relatively small. I'm comparing it to Philippines and Thailand, similar income levels in the same region. And you'll see also US, Vietnam as other comparisons. But for Indonesia, I would look at countries like the Philippines and Thailand. Those are the updated figures. And Indonesia relies almost entirely on banks for intermediation. The capital markets are still relatively small and thin. So if the banks are not serving the small businesses and low-income households, nobody is in the formal sector. So you also look in Indonesia and you'll see over time the number of banks has declined. The number of BPRs, which are supposed to be rural banks or community banks, has also declined. And then I updated it for 2018, and the numbers are even smaller. The idea is that Indonesia has to consolidate its banks, and bigger banks are safer banks. I would disagree with that. What it's done, it's killed a lot of innovation and outreach in the Indonesian banking system. This is the same thing in a picture. Just look at the top. Private commercial banks have gone down as part of the consolidation philosophy. So then what we did was look at the banks. So if the banks aren't lending to UMKM, how do they make their money? Why are they so profitable? So we looked at the balance sheets, so we looked at their assets, and then we looked at where the income is coming from to see if it matched the assets. So we just highlight one column for you. Look at loans as a percentage of total assets. In a bank, most of your assets should be loans, and most of your liability should be savings. Okay, so somebody was correct out there. And so with the exception of BRI, number 2, you can see that less than half of their assets are loans. So where are their assets? Well, they're placing their money at BI. They buy BI certificates of deposit. After Krismon, there was something called recapitalization bonds. They're still there. And if I'm a bank and I could buy debt from the central bank or get bonds for recapitalization from the government, why go out and make loans? You pusing. Yeah? Ledu ada, enak. I've got risk-free, high-interest investments. If I go to make loans, it costs more money and I'm taking more risk. So here you have a situation where the banks are making a lot of their money, at least looking at assets, from not making loans. And then we said, well, does the interest match the composition of assets? And you can see that investment income is a significant part of the bank's income and thus their profitability. So the banks are smart and they're rational. They found the lowest cost, lowest risk way to make money. If I'm a bank, my responsibility is to my shareholders. And I'm doing well by my shareholders. I'm making good returns on their investment. Then we look at some regulatory issues here. And what you have in Indonesia is 2 levels of banks. At the top, with most of the banking assets, is an oligopoly. Oligopoly, what is that? Oligopoly, it's like a monopoly, but a few banks. They control the market, and they control the prices. And you think about Indonesia now, a bank cannot fail. Anybody remember this bank called Century Bank? Changed the name, but they didn't close. And you cannot get a new banking license. If you want to open a bank, you have to buy the license from an existing bank. So this is kind of nice. I can't fail, and nobody can come in and compete with me. I wish I owned a bank in Indonesia. It would be very profitable. And you look at the concentration of the top 5 banks. First, you're looking at who they're lending to. So MSME, remember, UMKM, except for BRI, it's less than a fifth of their loans or a fifth of their borrowers. If you look at BRI, it's almost all the borrowers in numbers of people or accounts and about 4/5 of their portfolio. Talking more about the regulatory context and providing perverse incentives to do things you don't want them to do. So the 5 largest banks in Indonesia in 2009 had over half of the total assets in the banking system. Half. I updated it in 2018, and it's the top 4 banks is almost half. So not a lot has changed. And so when you have an oligopoly and you control prices, it means you have very high net interest margins. Indonesia, compared with countries that are similar, is by high the biggest margin, which means that they could be very inefficient and exploit their oligopoly rents. I updated it using a different source. So in 2009, the number from Indonesia was 6.6, 2016, 6.4. Not a big difference. How many of you have credit cards? Okay. How many of you know what the interest rate on your credit cards is? Students. Really, really high. Really high. And the banks make most of their money from consumer finance, credit card finance, and bank fees, not lending to small and medium businesses. So, we'll skip this and go directly to the question about regulation. So, if you look at the history, in the 1980s, Indonesia deregulated the banking sector because they were trying to get it to develop quickly. The problem was that although the banking sector grew and diversified, that's in the green. The red, bad news, is that the bank regulator at the time, BEI, didn't have the technical capacity and the political support to intervene when banks were in trouble. So even if they knew a bank was in trouble, maybe you've heard, there's a phrase I heard in Indonesia, KKN, yeah? Pernah dengar? Pernah dengar? Yeah, okay, just making sure you guys are awake. I can fall asleep. You may not fall asleep, okay? Tidak boleh ngantuk, okay? We have to keep each other awake. And then you had Krismon. And the trigger was currency problem, devaluation of the rupiah, and it led to the collapse of the entire financial sector, including the banks. And so, after Krismon, the government got very strict and re-regulated, trying to consolidate and make banks healthy. The cost of this was 100% of GDP. 100%, the size of the entire economy. So, of course, the regulators said, never again, we're not going to let this happen, because in the end, it's you people, the taxpayers, who pay for this. But the bad news is, what they created at the same time was an oligopoly, financial repression, and financial exclusion. So the challenge is to try to find some balance between prudent regulation. What you want is to have healthy banks, prudentially sound banks, but enough competition so that you have inclusion. The major incentive for a bank to lend to small and medium enterprises is because there's competition and they have to find a new profit center, a new source of profits. And as long as they have a protected market and they have a little lending club, they don't have the incentive to look for new markets and new borrowers. So this is just a picture of balanced regulation. How do you like her? Yeah? Give her 10? 10? Yeah, okay. Just checking with my boss on time management here. Okay. So you've got some good news. Indonesia being a pioneer, having remarkable progress in conventional microbanking as well as more advanced technology-based financial services. But you've got a regulatory environment that basically discourages banks to innovate and look for new markets. So, can innovative use of technology help banks? And basically, if you're a bank, you look at 3 ways technology can help your bank be more profitable. Efficiency improvement or cost reduction. Number 2, developing new products and services. And number 3, helping with decision support or knowledge. So those are listed on the slide with examples of each way. So that brings us to FINTECH. What is FINTECH? FINTECH? Financial technology, use of technology to provide financial services. And again, when we talk about financial services, we're talking about domestic transfers, foreign remittances, e-commerce payments, many of you familiar with. We're talking about e-wallets, stored value, electronic wallet savings, and we're talking about crowdfunding or peer-to-peer lending. And when you look at FinTech, it can be disruptive or it can be complementary to the current banking system. So if it's disruptive, basically people don't trust the banks, or they're upset with the banks, or non-competitive practices of banks. Have any of you ever tried to do a wire transfer via a bank? Anybody have an experience doing an international wire transfer? Okay, some of the more mature members of the audience have. It's really expensive, and it's really pusing banana. If there's anything that goes wrong, the sending bank blames the receiving bank blames the sending bank. Both banks charge you, so there's a sending charge, there's a receiving charge, there's a really bad foreign exchange rate. The banks make money many times over. So then you have these fintechs that are saying, well, I think we're going to be disruptive. We're going to do it on our phone, and we're going to get rid of all of the uncertainty and all of these fees. And you can do it much faster, cheaper, and in many ways, more safely, more secure. So that's an example of being disruptive, or they can be complementary. For example, going down market and serving customers that banks are not serving. So they complement what the banks are doing because they can do it better. And, you know, it's a big and growing field in Indonesia, in Asia, and in the world. So let me just give you some numbers from December 2017. So there were almost 300 mobile money services operating in 90 countries, processing about $1 billion US per day, generating over $2.4 billion in mobile money industry direct revenues, almost 700 million registered mobile money accounts globally, which was a 25% increase from the year before. And a lot of these accounts aren't active. They don't have a lot of activity on them. So if you look at just the active accounts in the month of December, it's still 168 million. You have almost 3 million active mobile money agents in developing countries, which is more than the alternative financial access points. So ATMs around the world, about 1.4 million. Commercial bank branches, about 500,000. Post offices, about 500,000. Western Union, about 500,000. So this is much larger than any of the alternatives. And the average mobile money customers moved about $200 a month. About half of that was just cash in, cash out. About a third were peer-to-peer transfers, paying friends, family, relatives. And about 7%, this is in value, were for merchants or paying bills. So that's the good news. But my job is to kind of give you good and bad news at the same time. So what are some of the challenges with mobile payments? The first is that some people see that mobile payments is the objective. I see it as a means to a bigger objective. So in the short run, providing payment services to low-income families is really important. It decreases how much money they have to spend on transfers, which increases disposable income, and that allows them to use their money to buy other things like health, education. But in the long run, what you want is to use this access to payment services. You want to leverage it so that you have access to all the financial services that everybody needs, rich, middle income, low income, which is savings, credit, and insurance. So if it stops at just payment, you're missing the real development impact for the family in the long term. The other problem is that now a lot of these providers are providing instant approval loans, short-term loans, 2 weeks, 1 month. But their effective lending rates are higher than money lenders. It would embarrass a money lender, okay? And how much do money lenders charge effectively in Indonesia per month? Effective? 7 to 10%. These rates, an example from another country I won't name, they say interest-free. Interest-free. But there's a 7.5% fee off the top for a 1-month loan. Do the math, and you're getting close to 100%. And then people repay in advance after 2 weeks to get the next loan. So now you're pushing 200%. That would make a moneylender blush, turn red. I mean, these are outrageous fees, and what you're doing is you're creating a debt trap because it's what I call distress or emergency lending, and people are not generating any income to repay the loans. So you're not doing a service, you're getting them deeper and deeper into debt. So a big need, I think, in mobile banking, especially mobile payment services, is consumer protection. Not consumer literacy. The poor know how to save. I'm going to give you a double negative. They cannot afford not to save. They must save. So they know how to save. And they know the value of money because they don't have much of it. What they need is protection so they know the real cost of these tools and the risks. And then they can make more informed decisions. So now, I want to end on a more positive note. So I'm going to give you a good case about the use of FinTech to promote SME lending in Southeast Asia. And of course, the middle of the map should be which country? The middle? Indonesia, right? The center. So this just goes to philosophy of what the IFC, part of World Bank Group, calls a missing middle. And it's really small businesses. For micro, we know how to do it if there's a political will to do it correctly. And we know how to do medium businesses because they are like small big business. Small businesses, like in Indonesia, right now they're in the process of formalizing. They're invisible, and they would prefer to be invisible. So no registration, no tax ID number. All they see is costs from being visible and no benefits. So as they start to formalize, they're too big for microfinance and really too small for the banks to be interested in. And that's the missing middle around the world, not just Indonesia and not just lower income countries. The United States has something called Small Business Administration, part of the federal government to try to find ways to facilitate access to financing for small businesses. Japan has a similar agency. So it's a problem around the world. This just shows Indonesia, that about 4/5 of the SMEs don't have access to formal financial services. That's the quick interpretation of that slide. And what the target is for this fintech is what they call credit-worthy businesses that are not bankable. It means the banks will not give them loans, but they're good businesses. Credit-worthy, but not bankable. Is there a way to make them bankable? So what they tried to do, as I said, the problem is lack of information by the banks. They don't know how to assess the credit risk of the borrowers. So this this fintech SME, it's called modalku. In Indonesia. They also operate in Malaysia and Singapore, where they're called funding societies. It's at the very bottom of the slide in the corner is the name of this. And what they're saying is, we will bridge the information gap. We will provide the banks with more information to lower the cost of doing credit appraisal and lower the risk. So if they can do it with lower cost, lower risk, they might be convinced to make a loan. And this intermediary charges a fee for the services, but tries not to be the lender, or maybe they'll make the first loan and then try to transfer the borrower to a bank because the banks have the money. And this funding societies, Modalku, has grown very, very rapidly. It was created by 2 graduates of the Harvard Business School, one from Indonesia, one from Malaysia. And this is a history of the company. This describes the different instruments they provide small businesses, but they're semi-secured loans, relatively modest interest rates, very quick approval. A lot of it is what we call invoice financing. So the business made a sale, they're waiting for payment, they'll get a loan to facilitate cash flow using the invoice as security. So very profitable, very, very helpful for banks to manage their liquidity. Some of the people they've worked with in Indonesia, Lazada, Tokopedia. There's an example of a small textile company and a mid-sized plastic company, describing what the business does and what financial product they were able to use from this fintech, Modalku. And in each country, they've worked very closely with the regulatory authorities. So in Indonesia, they are registered under OJK. In Singapore, under the equivalent of their central bank, the Monetary Authority of Singapore. And in Malaysia, under the Securities Commission, which is a little bit like APIPAM measures, supervises the capital markets, the stock exchange. And in each country, they're also working with commercial banks. So in Indonesia, Bank Sinar Mas, Malaysia, RHB, and in Singapore, the Development Bank of Singapore. I think because of lack of time, let me just show you what's on the next two slides. Again, they'll be posted. UI will make them available to you so that you don't have to worry about writing everything down. And I'm sure my dear friends at UI will remind me to give you the file. But these are some examples of SME lending using FinTech from around the world. I won't go through them, but it's really, really interesting, all the innovation that's going on around the world. And I will end with a picture about mobile banking. There we go. So what I wanted to do is to make sure we had time for discussion. So a lot of the details at the end, as I said, they'll be available to everybody. Dalam bahasa Inggris, minta maaf sebesar-besarnya, but it will be good practice for you. And I think now we go to our tanya jawab.
Yes. Thank you very much, Professor
Thank you.
Rosengard. Please join me to give a big round of applause to Professor Rosengard. This is actually a very complex and comprehensive topic, but can be delivered in very attractive way and simple way, and a very knowledgeable professor. But given the time, the committee told me I have to say I apologize in advance that we cannot open the question and answer session because several series of activities are waiting for us. So I need to close this. And if you are more interested into these materials, maybe you can find or in your maybe your recent articles or yes. Then maybe the committee can provide the informations about the links that you can read more about the works of Professor J. Rosengard. And before closing the sessions, there's a token of appreciation from the committee for Professor J. Rosengard. So you have to stay here for a minute longer. And again, thank you very much for attending this very important and very useful session from Professor J. Rosengard. And again, please join me to give a big round of applause to Professor J. Rosengard.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kiki Feriko and Professor J. Rosengard. We would like to invite Professor Ari Choro to present a token of appreciation to Professor J. Rosengard. Our token of appreciation is in the form of Punakawan puppet figures, who are the caretaker of Pandawa family, who have a unique but complementary character combination. Another token appreciation is given to Dr. Kiki Feriko. Thank you very much for moderating our today's lecture. Ladies and gentlemen, now it is time to cut the tumpeng as our symbol of gratitude and hope to accept the blessing from the Almighty. We would like to invite again Professor Ari Kunchoro, Profesor Siddhartha Utama, Dr. Beta Yulianita Gitahari, Ibu Vita Silvira, Ibu Monica Romelina Sijabat, and of course, our beloved Professor J. Rosengard to the stage. We would like also to invite Bapak Saleh Hussein to accept the tumpeng. stage along with Professor J. Rosengard, Profesor Siddhartha, Bapak Saleh Hussein, Ibu Dr. Beta Yulianita, and Ibu Vita Silvira. The first cut of tumpeng be given by Professor Ari Kunchoro to Professor Siddhartha Utama and also to Bapak Saleh Hussein, Chairman of Board of Trustees. Give us applause. Prof. Ari Kunchoro, Profesor Siddhartha. We would like to request Ibu Dr. Beta Yulianita to cut the tumpeng also and deliver the tumpeng to Professor J. Rosengard. Thank you very much, Professor J. Rosengard. And Ibu Vita Silvira, please cut the tumpeng. And hand it to Ibu Monica Sijabat. Thank you very much to Ibu Monica Sijabat, who has been supporting today's occasion. Professor Ari Kunchoro, last but not least, we have prepared a surprise tumpeng to celebrate your appointment as a new rector of Universitas Indonesia. This is from us, the big family of Faculty of Economics and Business Universitas Indonesia. So here we have representations of students of Faculty of Economics Universitas Indonesia who will cut the tumpeng and present it to Professor Ari Kunchoro. Because we have a double celebration today. One is to celebrate the anniversary of Faculty of Economics, and second is to celebrate the appointment of Professor Ari Kunchoro as a new Chancellor of Universitas Indonesia. Please, the representative of students, to cut the tumpeng. Professor Ari, please accept this tumpeng from us. And also we have here the representative of our staffs. The professional staff from Faculty of Economics will cut the tumpeng and present it to Ibu Dr. Beta Yulianita and Ibu Vita Silvira. Once more to Ibu Vita Silvira. Congratulations to all of us. Please remain on the stage and take a picture together. Photographer ready? Okay, to take the picture all together. We would also like to invite the deans from all faculties in Universitas Indonesia, the professors, all the invited guests to take a picture together with our speaker and Professor Ari Kunchoro. You may also join us by Pak Teguh, Prof Irwan, Pak Sugi, Bu Dwini, Pak Ator, Prof Krisno monggo. Please Prof, Pak Fit monggo, Ibu Tika, Ibu Cici, Pak Arif. You may join us to take all the picture together.
Arif sini, Arif. Sini, Rif. Sini, Rif. Sini, Wardah naik, Wardah.
We may form two lines if the line is too long. We may form two lines. Maybe the so-called millennials.
Yang cowok, yang cowok
Okay, the photographer be ready for 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of our program. We would like to thank you for your attention and your presence. We'll be seeing again at the 17th anniversary next year in 2020. We would like also to inform our invited guests and lecturers. The lunch has been provided on the 3rd floor of this building. Good afternoon and have a nice day. Bapak Ibu tamu undangan, kami informasikan makan siang tersedia di lantai 3 dekanat. Dipersilahkan untuk menikmati makanan yang telah disediakan.